The silence inside a decommissioned auto plant is heavier than the machinery itself. It is an unnatural, quiet, broken only by the echo of security boots on polished concrete. In Detroit, this silence is spreading like a contagion across the industrial parks. The first target of this strategic realignment is the iconic Sterling Heights assembly capacity. For decades, this region was the undisputed arsenal of democracy and the forge of the American dream, but today, the arsenal is being relocated to coordinates far south of the Michigan border. We are looking at a triad of movements that signals the end of an era. The first pillar of this exodus is the Stellantis production shift involving the Ram 1500. This is not just a truck, it is a symbol of working-class strength and utility. The Ram 1500 Limited, with its leather-wrapped interior and hemi-power, is a profit machine. However, the assembly of this profit machine is quietly sliding into the Saltillo truck assembly plant. Located in Coahuila, Mexico, this facility has been expanded with surgical precision. While the public eye was focused on EV mandates, concrete was being poured in the Mexican desert. Stellantis executives call it a relief valve for overflowing demand, but the workers in Michigan see it as a slow-motion hemorrhage of their livelihoods. The Saltillo complex is a marvel of modern industrial engineering, shielding it from U.S. labor costs. It spans millions of square feet, a fortress of steel and automation rising from the blend. Inside, armies of FANUC robots weld chassis with a speed that rivals any plant in the world. The decision to revitalize Saltillo for the Ram 1500 was a tactical masterstroke by the board. It bypasses the grip of legacy unions and capitalizes on a highly skilled, lower-cost workforce. Simultaneously, Ford Motor Company is executing a maneuver of historic proportions in Tennessee. They call it Blue Oval City, a name that sounds like a utopia but feels like a fortress. This is not merely a factory. It is a 6-square-mile mega-campus designed to render Detroit obsolete. The investment totals nearly $6 billion, a staggering sum that could have revitalized Michigan. Instead, the earthmovers are tearing up the soil of West Tennessee, preparing the ground for the future. The scale of Blue Oval City is difficult to comprehend without aerial surveillance. It is designed to be a vertically integrated ecosystem, producing batteries and trucks in one loop. The target vehicle is the next-generation electric truck, the successor to the F-Series legacy. By placing this asset in the South, Ford is insulating itself from the labor volatility of the North. The terrain in Tennessee offers them a clean sheet, free from the ghosts of old contracts. The third front in this industrial retreat is General Motors' pivot to Ramos, Arizpe. While holding press conferences in Detroit about the future, the real capital flows south. The Ramos Arizpe assembly plant is being transformed into a premier hub for electric drive units. This facility is now the launchpad for the Chevrolet Equinox EV and the Blazer EV. These are the mass-market vehicles intended to save the company, and they are not made in Michigan. The betrayal felt by the Detroit workforce is rooted in the promise of the electric transition. They were told that the Green Revolution would bring jobs back to the Rust Belt. Instead, the high-tech tooling for the Ultium platform is being bolted down in Coahuila. Factory Zero in Detroit, once heralded as the flagship, has seen its shifts cut and its output throttled. The contrast between the humming lines in Mexico and the idling lines in Detroit is stark. Let us analyze the arsenal of these conflicted vehicles themselves. The Ram 1500 represents the pinnacle of internal combustion refinement. Its frame is hydroformed steel, capable of towing over 12,000 pounds. The assembly of this beast requires thousands of precise welds and complex wiring harnesses. Moving this production is not like moving a warehouse. It is transplanting a living organ. The logistics chain for the Saltillo plant has been hardened against disruption. Rail lines connect the factory directly to ports and distribution centers in the United States. Parts suppliers have been encouraged to set up shadow factories in the surrounding industrial parks. This creates a gravity well, pulling the entire supply chain south of the Rio Grande. Every component made in Mexico is one less component stamped in the Midwest. At Ford's Blue Oval City, the arsenal is the battery cell itself. The site will house a massive battery plant operated in a joint venture. These cells are the ammunition of the future auto war, determining range and power. By controlling the battery production in Tennessee, Ford controls the heartbeat of the truck. The chemistry labs and engineering centers are migrating to follow the production line. The soil in Stanton, Tennessee, is being compacted to support millions of tons of equipment. Massive steel beams are rising against the skyline, forming the skeleton of the new order. This construction site is currently one of the largest industrial projects in the Western Hemisphere. It is a monument to the shift in economic gravity away from the Great Lakes. The local economy in Tennessee is bracing for a boom, while Detroit braces for impact. GM's weapon of choice in Ramos Arizpe is the scalable Ultium drive unit. These motors are the result of billions of dollars in R&D, much of it taxpayer-subsidized. Yet, the casting and assembly of these high-tech units are happening thousands of miles away. The Ramos Arizpe plant has been retooled with a speed that shocked industry analysts. It is now capable of churning out electric SUVs at a rate that Detroit plants cannot match. The detection of this shift was not immediate, it was a slow accumulation of data points. analysts first noticed the discrepancies in the shipping manifests of heavy tooling. Robotic arms intended for domestic upgrades were diverted to southern logistics hubs. Union representatives began to report strange gaps in the maintenance schedules of northern plants. Temporary shutdowns for retooling stretched into weeks, then months. The intelligence picture became clear when the quarterly financial reports were released. Capital expenditure, specifically for North American modernization, was heavily weighted towards the South. The term optimization of footprint appeared repeatedly in shareholder calls. This corporate speak masked the reality of the physical relocation of assets. The quiet move was designed to avoid a public relations firestorm until it was irreversible. Then came the leaks from the supplier network. Tier 1 suppliers, the companies that make the seats, glass, and electronics, were told to move. They received memos instructing them to establish capacity near Saltillo and Stanton. Proximity to the customer was the cited reason, a euphemism for follow us or lose the contract. This forced a secondary wave of migration, draining even more jobs from the Midwest. The confrontation is now playing out in the timeline of the shutdowns. Let's look at the chronological collapse of the Detroit production schedule. It starts on a Tuesday morning at the Stellantis Sterling Heights assembly. The shift manager gathers the team for a town hall meeting on the shop floor. The announcement is vague, adjustment of volume due to market conditions. But the workers know what that means when they see the RAM numbers from Mexico rising. The clock ticks down on the third shift, the graveyard crew that kept the lights on. One by one, the lights in the employee parking lot flicker out as the shift is deleted. Inside the plant, the rhythm of the line slows, the gaps between trucks widening. The sensation is one of suffocation, a slow strangling of the factory's output. Meanwhile, at 8 o'clock hours in Saltillo, the atmosphere is electric. The Mexican plant is running at 110% capacity, pushing the limits of its machinery. New hires are being trained in waves, donning fresh uniforms and safety gear. The loading docks are a hive of activity, with car haulers lined up 3 deep. Every truck rolling out of Saltillo is a truck that wasn't built in Michigan. The confrontation at Ford is less about a shutdown and more about a diversion. The timeline for the F-150 Lightning production in Dearborn faces repeated delays. Engineers who were supposed to be optimizing the Michigan line are flown to Tennessee. Their expertise is being extracted and transplanted to the Blue Oval team. The brain drain is real, and it is happening in real time, flight by flight. In the GM boardroom, the decision to prioritize Ramos Arizpe is justified by margins. The cost per unit of an Equinox EV made in Mexico allows for a lower sticker price. They argue this is necessary to compete with Chinese imports and Tesla, but the chronological rollout of the new models tells a different story. The launch dates for Michigan-built EVs are pushed back, while Mexican models arrive early. The psychological impact on the Detroit workforce is devastating. Men and women who have given 30 years to the line feel the betrayal in their bones. They watch as the machines they maintained are tagged for redeployment. The rumor mill in the break rooms is the only source of true intelligence. Did you hear about the stamping press? It's going to The technical precision of the move is almost military in its execution. Rigging crews arrive on weekends to dismantle key subassembly stations. These are not scrap dealers. They are specialized logistics teams. They wrap the robotic arms in protective plastic, treating them like precious cargo. By Monday morning, a hole exists where a station used to be. The floor is painted over to hide the scars of the removed machinery. Management calls it lean manufacturing or space optimization. The workers call it the beginning of the end. The ghost of the factory is being created while the workers are still inside it. This is the historic betrayal, the hollowing out of the cathedral of industry. Let's focus on the minute-by-minute reality of a plant losing its product. Last ham, the line stops for a scheduled break, but the start buzzer never sounds. A technical issue is blamed, but the maintenance crews are standing down. They are not rushing to fix the sensor. They are inventorying their tools. The realization hits the assembly team. They are not needed today. 11:15 a.m., the plant manager announces a temporary furlough for 2 weeks. The euphemisms fly like shrapnel. Inventory adjustment, supply chain constraint, but everyone checks the news on their phones and sees the headlines. Stellantis expands Saltillo. Ford breaks ground in Tennessee. The connection is instant. A visceral punch to the gut. 12:30 p.m., the parking lot exodus begins. A somber procession of American steel. These workers drive the very trucks they build, financing them with the wages now at risk. The irony is bitter as they drive past the empty loading docks. The wind blows across the vast asphalt, carrying the dust of a changing world. In the rearview mirror, the factory smokestacks stand cold against the gray sky. In contrast, the sun beats down on the steel skeleton of Blue Oval City. It is 12:30 p.m. in Tennessee, and the construction site is a roar of diesel engines. Cranes swing massive girders into place, the bones of the new giant. Concrete mixers churn thousands of gallons of foundation, locking the plant to the earth. This is the sound of capital taking root in new soil. The sheer size of the Tennessee project is a declaration of permanence. Ford is building its own water treatment plant, its own power substation. They are building a city within a state, independent and fortified. The message to Detroit is clear. We don't need your infrastructure anymore. We will build our own, on our terms, in a place that welcomes us. Back in Mexico, the third shift at Ramos Arizpe is clocking in. The lights of the factory burn bright in the desert night, a beacon of productivity. The assembly line for the electric drive units hums with a high-pitched whine. Laser scanners verify the tolerances of every gear and casing. The quality control charts are green. The efficiency is climbing. This is the new standard of North American manufacturing. It is lean, it is digital, and it is geographically diversified. But it is also disconnected from the communities that birthed the industry. The bond between the automaker and the motor city has been severed. It has been replaced by a cold calculation of logistics and labor rates. The quiet move is no longer quiet. It is a deafening roar of departure. The three key factories, Saltillo, Bluabal, Ramos Arizpe, are the new. They represent the future, while Detroit is asked to manage the decline. The historic betrayal is not just about jobs. It is about identity. Detroit is the car. Without the car, what is the city? The strategic implication for the United States is profound. We are decentralizing our industrial base, spreading it thin across the continent. While this may make business sense, it weakens the concentrated power of the cluster. The ecosystem of engineering, design, and manufacturing in Michigan was unique. Breaking it apart risks losing the magic that created the Mustang and the Corvette. The skilled trades, the tool and die makers, the electricians, the millwrights are aging out. The knowledge transfer that used to happen on the factory floor is broken. A young apprentice in Detroit has no master to learn from if the plant is closed. The intellectual capital of the industry is evaporating or moving south. This loss is harder to measure than dollars, but it is far more damaging. As we reach the final phase of this narrative, we must assess the saldo. The balance sheet shows record profits for the corporations. Stock prices respond favorably to cost-cutting measures and strategic realignments. Wall Street applauds the efficiency of the move to Mexico and the South. But the social balance sheet tells a different story of deficit and loss. The neighborhoods surrounding the Detroit plants face a winter of uncertainty. Small businesses that relied on the lunch rush of the factory workers will close. The tax base of the city will shrink, affecting schools and emergency services. This is the ripple effect of the betrayal, extending far beyond the factory gates. It is a slow-motion economic catastrophe disguised as corporate strategy. However, the spirit of the American worker is not easily broken. The unions are mobilizing, demanding guarantees for future product allocation. The fight is now about securing the next generation of vehicles for the North. But the leverage has shifted. The companies now have alternatives. If you strike, we shift volume to Saltillo, is the unspoken threat on the table. The lesson of this historic betrayal is one of vigilance. Economic sovereignty requires that we protect our industrial capacity. We cannot allow our critical infrastructure to be auctioned off to the lowest bidder. A nation that does not make things eventually forgets how to make things. And when that knowledge is gone, it does not come back. The factories in the South, Saltillo, Blue Oval, Ramos Arizpe, impressive feats of engineering. They are to be respected for their technical prowess and output, but they should not rise at the total expense of the legacy foundation. There must be a balance, a way to expand without abandoning the core. That is the challenge facing the industry and the country today. As the sun sets over the idle Factory Zero, a single security guard locks the gate. The wind rattles the chain-link fence, a lonely sound in the empty lot. Thousands of miles away, the morning shift is starting in Coahuila. The global machine grinds on, indifferent to the geography of loyalty. But we remember, we document, and we warn. The Detroit auto giants have moved their pieces on the board. They have bet against the past in favor of a more profitable future. But history has a way of remembering those who walk away. The historic betrayal is now written in the concrete of 3 new factories, and the silence in Detroit speaks louder than any press release. We must demand a renewed commitment to domestic industrial sovereignty. We must support policies that incentivize keeping production on home soil. The future of our economy depends on our ability to build, create, and sustain. Do not let the lights go out without a fight. Keep your eyes on the horizon and your boots on the ground. This is a call to order for every American who values our industrial independence. The story of these 3 factories is a warning signal for every other sector. Watch the movements, track the investments, and follow the money. The quiet move is the most dangerous move of all. Stay alert, stay informed, stay ready.